Good morning, fellow delegates. I am Michelle Goronsky, your president of the MGEU, Manitoba Government and General Employees Union, and I am so excited to be welcoming you to the 2021 MGEU convention, our very first ever virtual convention. I call the 66th MGEU convention to order. Before we get started, I just want to share a huge thank you with folks last night for the delegates and those that were attending our All Candidates Forum. We worked out our kinks, we've ironed everything out, and we're going to be moving forward positive. We might end up with a couple of little ripples along the way. Have patience with us, and we will get through this. And again, welcome, welcome, delegates. I'm going to start with, of course, our treaty land acknowledgement. The MGEU operates throughout Manitoba and is located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Anishinaabeg, the Inuwak, the Nathanihuak, the Dakota, Dene, and Métis people. Our primary office is located on Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Our work extends throughout territories 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 10. We acknowledge that Winnipeg's water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. We respect the treaties made on these territories. We dedicate ourselves to move forward with Indigenous communities in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration to make Manitoba an inclusive and accessible place for everyone who lives here. Thank you so very much. I would now like to welcome Barbara Nipanuak for this year's invocation. Elder Barbara.
Anin Tanse, welcome, greetings to everybody. My name is Barbara Nipanuak. My traditional name is Tu Thunderbird Woman. I'm referred to as the Tu Thunderbird Woman. I'm from the Bear Clan. We are in Treaty 1 territory, the land of my ancestors, the Anishinaabe, the Cree, Cree, Inuit, homeland of the Métis, and also the settlers. We are here to welcome this celebration of gathering today. It is important that we always acknowledge the land and also the people that reside here and everywhere on Turtle Island. I just want to make mention to the fact of the reconciliation is very important, and we should be aware of recent findings in communities and properties and where residential schools were situated. I am not a survivor of a residential school, but my husband is. He went for 11 years, and there are certainly a lot of things that have not been addressed. And I think for some of us in the Aboriginal community, we always knew that there was children buried on the grounds. We know that. Some of us have always been praying for those spirits of those children. To this day, I still do that, even though I didn't know anybody that were affected. But it's part of reconciliation. And it's not a time for people to feel guilty of who they are and where they come from. It's a time of supporting each other and empowering each other. You know, it's important that we do that because this what will create harmony in our communities, understanding, and acceptance. I'm here today to do a brief ceremony. We call that the water ceremony, and that is to acknowledge life. And the teachings that I follow, I come from a family of 9 girls. I was raised in a family of 9 girls and 2 brothers. And as a child, my mother always used to say this to us: one day you're going to pray for those others, and you're going to pray for that water, because water sustains us. Water is life. We call that Pimadiziwin. I want to do that today for each and every one of you, to honor you and to honor life and the essence of water. It is important that we do that. That's our role as women, as life givers. We have that right. You don't have to be Indigenous to do this water ceremony. It's an acknowledgement of life. So with that, I'm going to do this water ceremony. And for some of you people that want to participate, you can have water with you, and I will pray to the water. But in essence, it's to acknowledge life and to be able to travel this world together and to be able to get along and accept each other and to treat each other with kindness. So with that, I'm going to do my prayer in my language. Ani jo benesi ko ende shikene me go sma konto tem. Me gani wa ga hip me she. Mini wani bishop me ga hik tu tamano we no go kai na kamigesi yotong we. Ke vi no te yong sakite yok. We ga gi na piang no go man shna be yang. Kami ko in talk go ek binon jiesa ko binon chaka gi ningo in talk. Me de she no ngi she mane do she ba setwan. Shaweni mishinam. Wa van de shinam. Me na be mate siwen. Am bege chishawen dieng. Chisagi tieng. Quick chishaka kanun dieng. Met de she no ngi she mane do she ba senwang. Am be wendi be manish ma mate siwen on de semak. Manu ki chanishna be na lek misie awat. Ke vi no. Chimini koyot ne be bekatnik. Ambege misia kinga hoda tuat. Okay, we know, a web madisiot. Met the shenogum, metanunga, maybe she bogus said Makishamanito. Chisahigo, miigwech dicket nunga gishgak. Miigwech, thank you, Grenakominim, and to all my relations. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder, so very, very much for joining us today and being part of our convention. Once again, we're very proud to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, miigwech. At this time, I would be pleased to observe a moment of silence for our sisters, brothers, and friends that have passed since our last convention. Moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. I would like to now introduce the Stanley Country Cut-Ups, who will be performing our national anthem in Solidarity Forever. And I would like to let the delegates know that Jeremy Penner, the Cut-Ups fiddler, is an MGEU member. He's a fellow member of ours. He's a paramedic with Local 911, and everyone may rise from where you are viewing, if you are able, and sing along if you know the words.
Watch workshops, endless miles of railroad laid. Now we stand outcast and starving amidst the wonders we have made. The union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than our hearted gold, greater than the might of atoms, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old. The union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The union makes us strong. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. The union makes us strong. The union makes us strong.
Doesn't that just start the morning off right? Unfortunately, we're not all together, but we still can have our traditions, and we can definitely value where we come from and the solidarity that joins us all together. So thank you so very much for the Stanley Country Cut-Ups. Your voices are strong and beautiful, and I absolutely love that music. I so appreciate having them be with us today. At this time, I would actually like to introduce our virtual head table, as it would be. Our first Vice President, Charlotte McWilliams, and she serves as the Chair of the Constitution, Bylaw, and Structure Committee. Our second Vice President is Doug Troke, who also serves as Chair of the Finance Committee. Our third Vice President is Shelley Wiggins, who serves as Chair of the Membership Education Committee. And our fourth Vice President is Ed Miller, who also serves as Chair of the Pension and Benefits Committee. And we are most fortunate to have Bert Blunden, the Secretary Treasurer of our National Union, NUPCHI, with us today as well for our event. We have Jean-Guy Bourgeois, the MGEU's Director of Internal Operations. Janet Kaler is MGEU's Director of Member Services and this year's elections chair. And I would also like to take the moment right now to acknowledge our amazing, hardworking board of directors. It has been an absolutely wonderful to work with so many dedicated MGEU members, and I look forward to having them serve for us again. It has been amazing. Thank you all so very, very much for being a part of us. We truly wish that we'd be together in person. And of course, we're not able to. COVID, the rules, pandemic, everything is standing in our way. We are here today the best way we can. And we are pleased that our brother Larry Brown, our NUPCHI president, has graciously joined us virtually. So in June of 2016, Larry was elected as president of our national union, NUPCHI. And after having served as the secretary treasurer since 1986, with degrees in political science and law, Larry has now a wide experience to draw on, having spent over 3 decades honing skills in government, public relations, labor relations, teaching, and legal issues. He has written and spoken extensively about public finances, debt, and deficit issues, the changes in federal provincial financing, public sector restructuring, and the resulting changes in the economic and political structures of Canada that have occurred in the last decade. Larry has been a tremendous support to the MGEU, particularly in the recent years with the onslaught of cuts, privatization, and the attack on labor rights in Manitoba. So appreciate having Larry at our fingertips. Let's give a warm virtual welcome to Larry Brown.
Hello, delegates. It's a pleasure to be sort of with you. I remember the good old days when if you said you were with somebody, that meant you were in the same room as them. Instead of now where it means you're on a screen somewhere where they can look at it. So it'd be nice to get back to the good old days, won't it? Oh, I shouldn't make jokes because I imagine this convention is a very solemn affair. I'm sure you're all really sad and distressed that your beloved premier has stepped down. Yeah, a lot of weeping and moaning, I'm sure, to mark his passage. But look, he did a real service to Manitoba. He proved that democracy is alive and well, because what he proved is that anybody can be elected premier, not just those with brains and talent. Anyway, the two candidates to replace him are not exactly a time to relax, are they? This is neither one of them is going to be setting the province on a better new course. If it's a new course at all, it has the potential to be as bad or worse. So not good news for us, the two candidates, but you're used to that. Pallister couldn't defeat you, and neither will those two when they get, whichever one of them gets elected. I find it interesting that Pallister and Jason Kenney have for a couple of years now been in some sort of perverse contest about who's the worst premier in the country. And now Pallister is gone and Jason Kenney is as good as gone because he won't survive till the next election in Alberta. So the two worst premiers are both being shown the door by the population. Anyway, let me take a moment to thank Michelle and Charlotte. Your leaders there play a very important and positive role in the National Executive Board, and I thank them for that. I also thank Jean-Guy. We rely on him heavily. He makes a real contribution to the work of the National Union, and we ask him for help on a number of occasions, and it's always there, ready, willing, and able. So really appreciate that. So we've gotten through federal election, and it's now business as usual, is it? Well, business as usual doesn't mean it's calm, does it? We have three overarching serious crises to deal with. There's the climate crisis, which affects every member of the National Union because everybody lives in this country, on this world. It also affects a lot of our members in a different way. The EMS people who have to dash into where there's been a climate disaster, our wildfire fighters and fighting the forest fires that were just so prevalent in the last few years. Our healthcare people are going to be facing new threats that they haven't even encountered before. We got a lot of people on the front lines, and their safety is a major concern of ours as we deal with the climate crisis. And we've also got people whose job it is to work with governments to try and mitigate the climate crisis. And we want to work with them and capture the best of their ideas. So the climate emergency is very much on our agenda. And so is the wealth and income inequality crisis. It was bad before the pandemic. You know, we've talked about this for a decade now, at least, but the pandemic made it worse. I'm sure you've seen some of the awful stories about how the wealth of the wealthy just went up like a rocket during the pandemic while other people were suffering. The income and wealth inequality is not an abstraction. Our members pay for it every day when they go to work. The strongest unions in Canada have sort of kept pace with where their members were. They haven't dropped an awful lot, but they haven't gained either in any significant way. And that's because income inequality is a serious problem for all of us. There is more wealth in this country, but it isn't spread around the way it used to be. It's all gone to the top. And part of our crises response is to the threat of austerity. We know that your government, many governments across the country are going to use the excuse of the COVID pandemic to say, well, now we've spent all the money and it's we now need to tighten our belts. We need new austerity. Many governments are all too happy to embrace austerity, whatever the reason. They just want austerity and they'll come up with whatever reason they can. And the COVID crisis will just be a new excuse for them. But you know, the fact is, it's not true. Provincial governments did not spend all of their money on COVID. Most of the money that was spent on COVID came from the federal government. And there is a way to deal with the lack of balance between expenditures and income, and that's to increase your income. It's called fair taxation. If governments are serious about deficits and about bringing their economy back into line, they should increase taxes. There is no question about that. For 20 years or so, we've been seeing, probably 30 years now, actually, we've seen cuts in corporate income tax, we've seen cuts in income taxes for the wealthy. And so these governments have got no excuse. They say, well, we don't have enough money. The fact is that they turned down money that they used to get from taxes. They sent it back, cut taxes, never created a job with that. They just simply made it harder for them to operate. And you know, in the United Kingdom and the United States, we've got governments there that have increased corporate taxes markedly because they've seen the writing on the wall. They can't keep on simply cutting public services every time that the word deficit comes up. So those are our three big overarching crises. There's lots else on our plate. Federal transfers of the provinces, we want that to be with more strings attached because some provinces are taking the federal money and not doing what they're supposed to be doing with it. They're doing it for other reasons. They're allowing for more private for-profit healthcare delivery. They're doing all sorts of things that should not be allowed. So we're calling continuously on the federal government more transfers, but with strings attached to make sure that the rules are being followed. And on that one, we want the federal government to help pay for long-term care, but we want that to happen with huge strings attached, and that means no more for-profit in long-term care. You all remember the horror stories about what happened to people in for-profit homes when the owners of those homes didn't staff them well, they didn't pay their staff well, they didn't take care of the people that were living there. And the death rate was atrocious, awful, horrific. And we can't have that continue in a civilized society. The overdose crisis, we've got an eye on that. We've got far too many members across the country who work on the front lines of dealing with the overdose crisis. And it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse since the pandemic. So that's on our radar. Anti-racism is an issue that we don't want to ever get to be second place. We want to continue to work on that. We've had a special committee working to make sure that we're dealing with racism effectively. And now we're setting up an Indigenous group where we're going to bring people from across the country together to say, are we representing our Indigenous members well enough? Are we making space for them in our unions well enough? So racism and Indigenous relations very much on our agenda as well. Domestic violence, we've never lost sight of that. During the pandemic, domestic violence became a pandemic within a pandemic, and we need to have a national program to deal with it. And you know, we've got a major advance on childcare. We've got childcare on the national agenda, but we don't have all the details worked out. As they sometimes say, the devil is in the details, and we've got 10 different provinces that are going to work out separate deals with the federal government. And we need to be on top of all of those arrangements to make sure that they deliver real, reliable, low cost, publicly delivered, not-for-profit childcare. So the fight is winnable, and we've won some of it, but it isn't a fight that's over yet. So we got lots of stuff to do. But you know what? Since the pandemic, it's increasingly clear that the public is on our side in so many of these issues. About 80% of the public believes in strong action by the federal government and the provincial governments to deal with the climate crisis. 75% of the public believe that there needs to be affordable, reliable, not-for-profit childcare across the country. About 90% think that the federal government and the provincial governments have got to fix the problem of long-term care and get for-profit out of long-term care. We need to have that as a public, not-for-profit system right across the board. So the people of Canada and the people of Manitoba deserve strong healthcare, environmental protection, strong education systems, strong public services across the board. An argument that they can't is simply nonsense. The argument that they can't be provided simply ignores the fact that taxes for the corporations and the wealthy have been cut and cut and cut again, and they're not paying their fair share. In the United States and the United Kingdom, as I said, governments there have figured that out. and they're moving to strongly increase taxes on the corporate sector. And we've got to see some of that in Canada as well. So the pandemic showed to us and everybody else just how crucially important public services are. And we want to seize the moment to rebuild. We want to put the power of our weight right behind forcing governments, provincial and federal, to rebuild and refinance and refund public services. That's what the people of Canada deserve. It won't be easy, will it? But what have we ever done that was easy? And what have we ever shied away from because it was hard? Not very much. And we're up for it. And you know what? After the heroic battle that so many of our members waged during the COVID pandemic, and are still waging, to serve the public, they sacrificed themselves, they worked endlessly, they exhausted themselves to serve the public. And with that example, the heroic example of so many of our members in so many different categories, I think it's fairly safe to say that we're the ones that we've been waiting for. Thanks for listening and have a good convention.
Thank you so very, very much, Brother Larry. Your experience in leadership is so invaluable to us. We are so proud to be part of a national union. Thank you so much again. And now I would like to welcome a very special addition to our convention, David Woodbury. He's no stranger to our MGEU conventions, and this year he has once again agreed to serve as our parliamentarian for this convention. Thank you so much, David. Thank you, thank you. All right, I was going to go into the minutes, but I'm notified that we have a point of order. Scott Cloney, you have a point of order for us.
There we go, I'm off. Yeah, point of order is we were provided our financial information yesterday, and it only includes the years 2020 and 2021 in there. Unless I miss my recollection, our last convention was in 2018, so we have no information whatsoever on the 2019 financials. Now, people have reached out to the union already and have been told that we don't usually give this information. And I see where they think that, but actually, if you look at page 5 of the financial document that we have, it shows the years 2020 and 2021. So normally the last year that we're talking about would be captured in that. Because it's a 3-year convention, we don't have that information. You're asking us to vote on the audit, to appoint the auditors, and to have questions about the financial report, but we don't have the information in front of us. So I am formally asking that every delegate here be provided that information so that we actually can look at the financials. 2029 was also a very big year financially for the MGEU, because that was where a lot of the money was spent on the representation votes. So I am prepared to make a motion, but right now I'm just kind of bringing it up that I think it was missed because it's a 3-year instead of a 2-year, and we're set up for a 2-year. So I'm just asking that it be sent to everybody by noon today so that we can see it.
Thank you very, very much. Scott, yes, and I know that you've reached out and you've had the discussion with some of our folks. There's been some clarification. And, normally, yes, you're right. At convention, as always, we do the 2 years, this year and the year before. That doesn't mean that can't be changed. Doesn't mean that we wouldn't endeavor to make sure that all years are there. And again, that might come forward with some of the resolutions that are going to be brought forward. That might change things a bit. But thank you for bringing that forward. And again, I welcome all delegates. If you do want to have that year of the financials, as we always do, any member, anytime, any day, can just call into the Resource Center and we will have those sent out to you. So thank you for the point of order, Scott. And we are going to move forward now to adopt the minutes of our 2018 convention. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the 2018 minutes as presented. And I ask delegates to please vote now on the motion. I believe it's going to be coming up on the screens fairly soon. And just a reminder, folks, for anyone that needs some technical support, please contact Data on the Spot toll free at 1-833-368-7111, or email mgeusupport@dataonthespot.com. And this information can also be found on the back cover of your delegate booklet, just as a reminder. So folks, if you're having any issues whatsoever, and again, please remember that, the Wi-Fi can be scarce, especially in rural Manitoba. So if the rest of your family can have some patience and make sure they're not playing video games or they're not live streaming anywhere else, making sure that you are able to attend convention today. It's most important that you're with us. So done everything we possibly can to make sure that happens. Just Hi, delegates. I have been asked to give a reminder for technical support. We are having some folks that are having some issues trying to get through to be able to do the voting. So for technical support, please contact Data on the Spot, toll free at 1-833-368-7111 or email MGEU support@dataonthespot.com, all small letters. And this information is, again, can be found at the back of your cover of your delegate booklet. We will endeavor to make sure that everyone is able to get in. The intention is that everyone is able to participate in convention. So I'm not sure if we are ready to move on. I don't believe so. I think we're going to try and give folks a few more minutes to be able to try and get in and do this vote. Let's just look at this as being a bit of a test vote. It's not a resolution. So this is the minutes from last convention. And again, it gives us an opportunity to ensure that everyone out there is able to participate. So make sure you're on the right channel that you're supposed to be. Channel makes it sound like a CB. But making sure that you are tuned in to what was sent to you as the information to be able to participate. Please ask all folks not to be on other channels, other chat rooms, or video games, or logging into anything. And we want to make sure that everyone is being able to vote. So we're going to go back and try and continue on with that vote. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We're getting there. Thank you, delegates. The minutes of Convention 2018 have passed. Thank you, folks, for your patience, and thank you, delegates, for making sure that you were able to get in. We are so happy that you've taken the time to make sure that you're with us. I'm recognizing that we do have Scott Cloney he wants to come forward again. Scott, I'm just going to get through the rules of order. We'll get through the beginning to be able to open convention and get us set on what we're doing, where the rules are. And then I will take you up on the offer to speak. So now we need to adopt, like I said, the rules of order as traditionally used by the MGEU and adapted to this convention for the virtual format. And it is described on page 100 of the delegate guide. So if folks want to take a look at that. I am also looking for a mover and a seconder to be able to open any debate on it. And as a reminder, if you are willing to move and second, or you want to be able to speak at the mic, you'll be required to raise your virtual hand. And I believe you're going to find it at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side. And then indicate to the virtual chair in the Zoom chat that what you'd like to speak to. And if you wish to speak to the pro or the con mics, you must please indicate in the chat, or you will not be recognized by the chair. We want to make sure that we are giving both sides equal opportunity to speak as we would at any normal convention. So I am looking for a mover and a seconder to adopt the rules of order. Giving that a moment for folks to be able to raise your hand. And again, if you're having any technical difficulties, data on the spot is where to go. 1-833-368-7111. And Dave Hill is moving. Thank you so much, Brother Dave. And I'm looking for a seconder. If someone would raise their hand and go into the chat, let us know who's willing to second. Giving it a second. Janice is seconding. Janice Goulet is seconding. Thank you so very, very much, both delegates. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And again, raise your hand, go into the Zoom chat, let the virtual chair know that you're waiting, and whether it's going to be pro or con. We have Teeny's, no, we don't. Okay, she lowered her hand. Thank you for your help, Teeny. Appreciate it so very, very, very much. And again, thank you everyone for your patience, of course, doing a virtual. We would much rather be in person, but we're here today and we're getting our business done. So we have no hands raised, so I am going to call for the vote. So folks, on your screen, and again, making sure that you scroll down to secure the voting section of the website, click Next Vote to refresh the page, and at this point, the refreshed ballot will display. Or you might be required to re-enter your voter ID and password. Once the poll is open, please cast your ballot. Once you submit your vote, ensure please hit confirm. Check it out, make sure you're voting as you choose, hit confirm, and then in order for it to be submitted successfully. The instructions, again, folks, are found on page 101 of your delegate booklet. Any questions to that? Ballot is open, and everyone now can go to vote. We have a 30-second warning, folks. Make sure that you're casting that ballot in. There we are, and it has passed. Thank you, delegates. Thank you, everyone that did call in the dots, making sure that you were able to exercise your right to vote. Very, very much appreciated. And folks, I'll give a quick reminder. You know, once you've voted and it's been successful, you've secured it, you've sent it on, then why not go ahead, grab your coffee, come back. You know that you've got those few minutes. So, I am just waiting. Okay, and there are the votes. So, excellent. Thank you so very, very, very much. So I am going to once again, I will recognize Scott, and then I'm hoping that we are going to be able to continue on, make sure that we are able to get the opening of convention going in a good way, and let's get us going. So Scott, you have another issue,
Well, it was
comment?
the same thing, actually. I said in the point of order, I was prepared to make a motion, and as we didn't get what I was asking for in the point of order, I am formally making a motion. And to make things easier, because this has been kind of a cumbersome process, on the floor, it would have taken about 5 minutes. Cal Ross has said that he will second that all delegates be sent the 2019 financials by noon today so they can review them prior to the financial discussion in the afternoon. So I'm formally making that motion. And again, Kyle Ross has told me, and I think he can raise his hand to indicate that he agrees that he will second that motion.
All right. Well, and once again, we're trying to get the opening of convention. Thank you for your patience, Scott, in moving this forward. We don't normally entertain motions at this point, but we definitely can. And Kyle has raised his hand and he's formally seconding. So, folks, we have another vote to go into. So, Scott, I'm just going to ask you again, please, if you could repeat your motion so that we can get it up on the screen.
There we go. It wouldn't let me unmute myself for a second there. Yeah, and I understand we want to get going. And the only reason I'm doing this now is so that the staff actually have time to do this, not telling them in half an hour, you have to send us something. Yeah, so the motion is that all convention delegates be sent the audited financial information for the year 2019 prior to noon today, which is October 20th.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And again, that information is available. Don't have to wait for convention, folks. Can do it at any time. I'm just trying to give us a little fill in here. We definitely have, we have a hand raised. I don't see the motion as of yet, but I'm going to go to Doug, who has his hand raised, and he can speak to the motion. Doug? We're going to go back and give you your 3 minutes once you unmute. All right. Still off? Can we unmute Doug for us, please?
There, now, can you hear me?
All right,
Can you
Doug,
hear
if
me?
you'd go
Okay,
ahead.
perfect. The technology is great. I just wanted to clarify for the delegates that normally on a convention, at a convention, we would have the prior year statements would be included as the 2020 is with the 2021. We have no problems with presenting the 2019 statements, and I look forward to getting them out to the delegates before noon. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Doug, for the clarification. And yes, once again, transparent, easy to get hold of at any time. Don't wait for convention, folks. Go ahead and call into the Resource Center anytime. Any financial statement will be sent out to you. All right, we are just waiting for the wording to go up. Takes a few minutes. And I just have to be careful that I'm watching which screen, folks. It's quite a menagerie out here. Not the same. I miss being in a room with 400 people and hearing the cheers and the energy and the excitement of convention. So I hope, folks, that you are able to sit back, relax, and participate in your convention in a relaxed way. I'm so glad you've been able to join us. And I know we do have the Credentials Committee is meeting off to the side, and they're anxious to be able to do their report in. Next up, we have Janet. Waiting to open the vote. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to figure things out, take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back. Thank you very, very much, everyone, for your patience. We weren't expecting, I wasn't expecting to be entertaining motions this early on. I thought we'd get through our opening first. But again, so I've been asked to please, to ask delegates to, when you do have a motion, to make sure we're getting that wording right, to please type it in the chat in the future so that we have it ready and Dots can then load it up so it's up on the screen. So again, thank you so very much for the patience from Dots, from all of our delegates, and we are moving this forward. The motion is that all delegates will be provided the 2019-2020 audited financial statements by noon, October the 18th. And the poll is open, and I will say, isn't going to be a problem. The staff were already getting prepped and ready to be able to send them out to the delegates. So this is awesome. Not a problem whatsoever. Poll is open. I will ask folks to please go in and vote. Oh, I'm asked again for technical support. We seem to have some folks that are having a bit of trouble. Please contact Data on the spot, toll free at 1-833-368-7111 or go to MGEU support at dataonthespot.com, small letters. This information, again, it's found on the back cover of your delegate booklet. So please, folks, make sure that you're not live streaming. Make sure that you're not moving anything around, or you've got other folks that are in the house that are onto things. No chat lines, no, virtual dancing happening while we're trying to get through this convention and make sure you all have the ability to attend. Rural Manitoba Wi-Fi is a little bit tough. Even in Winnipeg, there are some hiccups. So we do thank everybody for your support, your understanding, and your patience. We have Diana Schultz has her hand up. Diana. There's Diana. Hello.
Good morning. Sorry to interrupt. Just when you read the motion, Michelle, you actually identified it as before noon on October 18th. I think you misspoke. I think you meant to say October 20.
Again, for October the 20th, noon, October the 20th. Thank you, Diana, for catching that. I didn't, and obviously Scott didn't, so we definitely appreciate having that. Thanks so much. All right. So we've got Virginia McKee. Virginia, are you with us? You've got your hand raised. Hi, Virginia.
Hi. I noted that in the voting site, it also says October 18th. I don't know if that's an
Thank you.
issue.
Thank you. You know what? We'll have that corrected. And again, my bad. I should have asked Scott to type it in the chat. So thank you, Virginia, so very, very much. And I have to say, it's so great to see delegates on the screen. You know, I love the tech folks that are here, but it's not the same as being here with delegates. So thank you. We also have Johnson. Johnson, you're with us? Give us a second. We're going to pull you up on the screen, Johnson. And we are changing the wording on the ballot. All right, there he be. Good morning,
Hi.
Johnson.
Hi, Michelle. I it's the same thing that the other person talked about. It's if they want to correct it, so we can vote on it, or we have to vote as usual because the date is.
Yes.
I think there was
Thank
an
you
error
so
in
much.
the code.
Yes, thank you so
We-
very, very much. They are in the process of changing the wording so that it
Okay.
is correct. Thank you very, very much. Diana, Virginia, Johnson, very much appreciate taking the time out to make sure that we get this correct. And again, this would be like any other convention, right? Sitting in a hall with 400 people. We have to make sure that we've got the ballot exactly right. We have to make sure that we've got the motion right. So, okay. So we are going, if anyone has voted, I apologize. We're going to ask you to do it again. Good practice. So we're going to be closing the ballot, reopening it with the correct date on it, making sure that it is the correct wording in the motion. So again, folks, I would ask, if you want to make a motion, you are welcome to, of course, as you can see. We would just ask that when you raise your hand and go into the chat, let them know that you want to make a motion, type the motion in, and that way then we've got it verbatim. So definitely appreciated Scott's patience. And Scott, we are correcting the date that you had given us. This is all going to work out great, folks. So giving them a couple of minutes to be able to change that ballot, get it back up on the screen. I'm going to do another quick reminder to folks. If you need any technical support throughout today, tomorrow, please contact Data on the Spot toll free at 1-833-368-7111 or MGEU support at dataonthespot.com. And again, this information is found on the back of your cover of your delegate booklet. We also, page 101 of the delegate booklet, also gives you the steps on how to make sure that your vote is getting in. You need to refresh. You need to enter your voter ID and password. Your poll's open. You cast your ballot. Once you've submitted your vote, then you ensure that you look at it, hit confirm so that it does go through, and that way then it will be submitted successfully. And again, the instructions for that, folks, is found on page 101 of the delegate booklet. I have to say, huge thank you to the folks in the office that put all of that work into it and all of that detail. You know, it's very much needed and we appreciate it. We have Penny's hand is raised. I'm not sure if that's new, old, where it is, but I would like to acknowledge Penny, please. There's Penny. Penny, I think you're muted.
Hi, Michelle.
Good morning.
I'm having serious issues here. I'm on the phone with Dots as we speak. I have not been able to vote on one thing. And they finally got my my laptop back up on Zoom, which is working, but they can't get my voting stuff working yet. So we'll see if maybe the next vote will work.
Actually, Penny, you do have the ability to vote now, even if you have to do it verbally. You do it through dots, and they will definitely take your vote. But, you know, I'm really hoping we're able to work out the any issues that are there. I'm glad you're on the phone with them. Thank you for that so very, very much. We do not want to miss your ability to be part of this convention. So, all right, thank you, Penny, for that, and good luck. It'll work. I have full confidence. All right, so we have the new ballot is open and we are ready to vote with the correct date. Again, folks, if you're having any issues with voting, go to page 101 of your delegate booklet and that'll give you the steps to walk you through it. So the ballot is open. I'm asking folks to please go ahead, cast your ballot. Thank you so much. We are just waiting for those results. Another reminder, folks, and by the end of today, hopefully I'll have these down. The votes are in, and it has passed. Awesome. Thank you so very much, and we will get those out. I know the staff already started working on them before the motion even was written out, so we are ready to go. Awesome, and thank you to the staff that'll running to get that out for folks. All right, so just a reminder, when you come on to speak, you raise your hand, you need to be able to give your name and your local. This would be like any other convention. When you go up to a mic, you give your name, give your local, and then you go into what you wanting to speak about. So we thank you so much for that. I think we have all of the housekeeping. We have our convention officially opened up. Everything is there. I am going to welcome Janet Kaler to the podium. She's one of our 3 directors at the MGEU, the Director of Members and Member Services, and she is going to ensure that our convention runs smoothly. So, Janet, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle, and good morning, delegates. As Michelle said, I'm Janet Kaler, the Director of Member Services at the MGU and the Elections Chairperson. The MGU is committed to maintaining a positive, safe, and healthy environment for all members and staff. Solidarity within our union is based on the principle that we are all equal and deserve mutual respect. Any behavior that is disrespectful, intimidating, hostile, or offensive will not be condoned or tolerated. This behavior includes, but is not limited to, harassment on the basis of race, sex, age, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and political belief, physical or mental abilities. If the member, staff person, or guest at the MGU convention feels that they've been disrespected, they should let the offending individual know that their conduct is unacceptable and unwelcome. If they do not feel comfortable talking with the offending individual or cannot resolve the matter and require further assistance, please contact either MGU Director of Internal Operations, Jean-Guy Bourgeois, or MGU's Director of Negotiations, Sheila Gordon. Both Jean-Guy and Sheila can be reached for this purpose during convention at an email address of conduct@mgu.ca or through our MGU Resource Centre at 204-982-6438. A reminder to all delegates, as Elections Chair, I received a question regarding display of candidate promotional content during convention and related events, and I'd like to offer clarity on our position on this topic. Delegate name. The delegate guide provides very clear direction to delegates on how to enter their name when logging into convention. All delegates are expected to adhere to this direction so that delegates can be recognized appropriately by the chair. You are not to enter candidate promotional language into your naming field. In terms of clothing, buttons, and personal accessories, all of those that have attended convention before know that people have been permitted to wear t-shirts, scarves, buttons, and other clothing that displays language or images in support of an election candidate. This will be permitted for delegates on camera during our virtual convention as well. During in-person conventions, however, posters are not permitted in convention hall or in the hotel. So similarly, during our virtual convention and related events, delegates may not display promotional language or images in support of election candidates or virtual backdrops. As always, the MGU logo may not be used in or on any promotional materials, items in support of a candidate. I'm just going to move now to talk a little bit about our respectful workplace conduct. All campaign materials, of course, have to comply in that order as well. We want to remind folks that we have a full agenda that requires full participation from delegates. That's why our global chat was disabled to ensure fewer distractions. If you require assistance, the chat is open to speak with the virtual chair or request technical support. We encourage people to contact DOTS directly at 1-833-368-7111 for those purposes. And again, if you're looking for that, it's right on the back of your delegate booklet for easy reference. A quick reminder that everyone's mute button should be on to minimize all background noise that is also a distraction. You'll be asked to unmute yourself once you're acknowledged to speak at the mic. And at this time, we'd also remind you to turn on your camera if you're speaking as well. I'd ask all delegates to try to leave your camera on if your internet connection allows, because it's really nice to see a face. It's hard to talk to a screen, and it's great to have a little bit of contact. I now want to explain the election process we'll follow to elect our MGU provincial officers. Delegates will be voting on provincial officer positions as follows: President, First Vice President, Second Vice President, Third Vice President, and then our Fourth Vice President. Elections will be held tomorrow morning, and each candidate will need to win with a 50% plus one majority. Those wishing to run for any positions must have their nomination papers to me today, Wednesday, by noon. Nominators for candidates seeking these positions must be convention delegates. Nomination papers are available through the MGU Resource Centre. You can call toll-free 1-866-982-6438, and you'll be sent out a copy of the papers through email And you can fill them out, take a picture, and send them back. You can email them to our resource center, to me directly, or to Sheila Gordon. No later than noon today, nominations will close. At 12:30 today, we'll do formal nominations for all the positions, so you'll all know by 12:30 today who the candidates are. I want to, again, by the way, say thanks to everybody who participated in our All Candidates Forum last night, and a huge thank you to Kevin Rebeck, who was the evening's moderator. Before I ask the Credentials Committee to present their report to delegates, I would like to introduce this year's committee. Diana Schultz, Robert Wells, and Shelley Rougeau. I would now like to recognize Diana Schultz to present the report of the Credentials Committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Janet. My name is Diana Schultz, and I am a member of Local 410, technical professional, and I'm also the component director for the technical professional group. And I'm a member of the Convention Credentials Committee. On behalf of the committee, I provide the following report. The total number of registered delegates is 223. The total number of registered official observers is 7. As of 9:17 a.m. this morning, there were 213 registered delegates in the virtual convention hall, and there were 3 official observers participating. I move acceptance of this report of the Credentials Committee. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that? Just want to remind delegates to put your hand up so I can recognize you as a seconder. I see Darcel Lacroix is seconding. So it's been moved and seconded that we accept the Credentials Committee report as presented. I ask delegates to vote now on the motion. So the poll is closed, and we'll just wait for Dots to post the results. And it's passed. Thank you so much, delegates. And thank you to the Credentials Committee and the observers present, all of those are here. As many of you are aware, on October 7th, we held a virtual delegate orientation and later posted it to our website for those of you who are not able to attend. So there's lots of information there if you're interested in getting that. In the orientation, we completed a number of test votes, and we're going to go through another one now for a refresher, although we've done a few. Before we do, I want to update delegates on the amount of time they'll have to cast their ballot for each vote. At the orientation, we said each vote would be given 90 seconds. Since then, our Convention Planning Committee has decided to adjust the time allocated for each ballot to make sure delegates have enough time to cast their votes. So for votes on regular motions, when the vast majority of votes have been cast, delegates will be given a 30-second warning before the poll is closed. So Dots can tell us, 75 or 85 or whatever percent of the people have voted, and then the chair will come on and just let delegates know you got another 30 seconds to cast your ballot. For constitutional resolutions, which require a 2/3 majority to pass, delegates will be given 2 minutes to vote. So we won't shorten it, we won't whatever, 2 full minutes, and then the vote will be closed. For provincial officer elections, delegates will be given 4 minutes to cast their vote. For each of these votes, a timer counting down the time left to vote will be visible on the screen, so you'll know. If I could now ask Dad on the spot to open our test vote, that would be great. Hi, delegates. Most of you have voted, but we're going to give you another 30 seconds before we close it. And I should add that one of our delegates put in the chat that they want the voting results to stay up a little bit longer. So we'll make sure to do that, and thank you for the feedback, delegates. So you have another probably 25 seconds now. Thanks, delegates. That was passed. Just a quick reminder, after every vote, you need to scroll down to the secure voting section and click on next vote to refresh the page. That was a reminder I was supposed to give you. And then once the poll is open, cast your ballot. So thanks, Dad, on the spot. We're now going to take a short break. Feel free to get away from your computer, get some coffee and those other essentials, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you very much, delegates.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you, Janet, for all of the explanation. Hope everyone has taken a good break, and we will move forward. At this time, I am going to acknowledge our Solidarity guests and our Honorary Life members. A great big hello to all of our MGEU members, of course, that are out there, and the Solidarity guests that have joined us. I'm going to name off a few of our affiliates across the NUPCHI union. We have Larry Brown again, president of NUPCHI, is with us. Smokey Thompson, president of OPSU. Sarah LaBelle is the regional VP of OPSU. We have Jason McLean, who's joining us from Nova Scotia, NSGEU. Susie Pro-Daigle, she is the president of New Brunswick Union. And we have Karen Jackson, the president of PEI, UPSE. Jerry Earl, the president of NAPE. And Mike Parker, president of HSA Alberta. And again, of course, we've got Bert Blunden with us at studio. I also want to say a huge thank you to all of our Labour Council affiliates, the CLC affiliates that are joining us today. Normally they would be on our convention floor, sitting in the guests in the back, and we'd be able to have them observing closely and have the closeness and the energy from them as well. But again, we are doing this virtual. So we'd like to extend a big thank you to all of our MGEU Honorary Life members. They've joined us today. Some joined us last evening, including the two new recipients this year. I'm very proud to say Marlene Horechka and Pat Williamson are both going to be joining our list of Honorary Lives, and you will be hearing a bit more and seeing the presentation of those in a bit. So with that, let's get this show on the road. We're a little bit behind, but we are going to catch up and have a great time, folks. As usual, before I spend some time sharing what our MGEU board and staff have been up to since last convention, we're going to kick things off with a video. I will tell you, this video just makes my heart swell with pride. So this is a special, one-of-a-kind. I don't know if you've all noticed, but the last couple of years has been a real challenge out there. I think all across Manitoba, Canada, the world, we've all been feeling a little bit of it. A heartfelt thank you to each and every one of you that agreed to be part of the video shoot. These things are not exactly easy to do during a pandemic, so we so appreciate it. And thank you to the so very, very many of you that sent in photos, which you're going to see shortly. Really helped to bring us to life, to recognize and to celebrate what we've been through together, standing arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, being there for each other and for fellow Manitobans. So with that, let's take a look at this year's video.
When the pandemic hit, everyone was affected. It happened so quickly. But we worked together to overcome so much. During one of the most trying times of our lives. Together, we made a real difference. Behind the scenes and on the front lines, we stood, making sure people got the help and protection they needed. We adjusted to a new reality of balancing family with an entirely new way of working. We made sure Manitobans were supported and cared for. We adapted to keep people safe and our public services working. And through it all, we kept Manitoba going, even when so much of our world came to a standstill. We all made sacrifices. For our families, for our friends, for our communities.
I have never been more proud to be an MGEU member or the MGEU president. The dedication, MGEU members, that you have given to your fellow Manitobans through this pandemic is truly amazing. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
As public service providers, we have so much to be proud of. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We make it all happen. And we're stronger together.
Oh my, watching that, witnessing the ways in which you've all continued to serve Manitobans during the most trying of times is so humbling and makes me so proud to be your president. So proud to be MGEU. I can't tell you how much I wish we were all together in person, feeling the amazing energy of our convention room. Those of us who step up and get involved in the union tend to be people. We do it because we care and aren't afraid to jump into the fray. I know I miss that face-to-face interaction so terribly. I miss you. Still, I'm very proud to stand before you virtually and report what we've accomplished together as a union over the last 3 years. Just like so many meetings since the pandemic hit, this virtual gathering is all about getting together to get the job done, no matter what. And what a ride it has been. By April of 2020, it was clear we'd have to cancel over 100 already scheduled in-person meetings to elect local executives and convention delegates. Then, under lockdowns that came and went, we had to troubleshoot and problem solve and come up with a way to hold these essential province-wide meetings in the most inclusive and accessible way possible. Together we did it, and here we are. And I have to tell you, sometimes it's hard for me not to think about these years as nothing but the big P problems. First we had Pallister, and then along came the pandemic. But I know it's not quite that simple. Many of the issues we have faced and are facing are multifaceted and ongoing. And the ways in that we stand up and rally the fight are multifaceted and ongoing too. So today, I'm going to break down the story of our last few years into 4 key categories. And I'm not going to sugarcoat things, fellow delegates. Since our last convention, it has often been damn tough. Those of us leading, your board, and those staffing this union day in and day out have had moments of true solidarity and also utter frustration. Together, we've experienced disappointment and vindication. We've been angry about things out of our control and energized to do every last thing we could. But let me tell you, your MGEU board and staff always rose to the occasion when it mattered most. I am so proud of both. With our mission, putting people first as a foundation, we managed to forecast, take quick action, and pivot accordingly. And I thank each and every one of these folks with all my heart. I can't imagine having gone through all of this with any other group of people. Thanks to them, you've had an amazing team in your corner, ready and willing to come out swinging. Thanks to this amazing team and so very many of you with us today, the MGEU has continued to mount challenge after challenge when it comes to privatization, closures, and cuts. This is where the big P, Mr. Costa Rica, thorn in my side mostly comes in. But Pallister also played a starring role in number 2, which is harmful legislation. And by that I mean legislation that actually prohibited our ability to make progress at the bargaining table or as a labor movement in general. The pandemic shone a spotlight on number 3, which is safety and health on the job. But as you'll soon hear, this is an issue that's far broader than COVID testing and office hygiene right now. And finally, I'll touch on how when members came forward with an issue, any issue, it could be a long-standing systemic problem or something that just came up. Maybe one specific local is impacted, or maybe an entire component is struggling. It doesn't matter. We continued to tirelessly speak up on your behalf. Okay, let's start with privatization, the other P word that continues to haunt us. Since elected, the Pallister government just cannot seem to get enough of contracting out your jobs and selling off our public assets to private corporations. By the spring of 2019, for instance, it was clear that the government planned to further privatize liquor sales in Manitoba. So that summer, members of Golico's executive traveled the province to talk with members about 2 major issues facing the component: liquor mart thefts, which we'll get to in a minute, and privatization. A few months later, the union relaunched Keeping Liquor Public, a radio and online campaign about the benefits of keeping liquor sales public. The ads made sure Manitobans understood what they had to lose. Throughout the campaign, we reached out to members, knowing their engagement was key to keeping the pressure on the government. Activists even organized a phone bank to call members directly and talk with them about our efforts. Thanks to such dialogue, MGEU membership and members registered to speak at the legislative committees and wrote, called, or met with their MLAs. We also made it easy for thousands of MGEU members and supporters of public liquor sales to send an email message to the Premier, requesting that he and his government rethink their latest privatization scheme. Over 7,000 emails flooded his inbox. As you may know, when Mr. Pallister recently stepped down, his liquor privatization scheme went with him. Every single one of you who played a part in the campaign should be feeling pretty damn good right now. But please rest assured, your union remains vigilant. A new PC leader is coming in 10 days with the same ideologies. We are watching and ready to stand up for you. We will continue our campaign to make sure Manitobans understand the benefits of our public liquor sales system, because we know the rumble continues, even without Mr. Pallister at the helm. And we know exactly what's called for. We need to make sure your voices are heard and Manitobans understand what's at stake when their public services are handed off to corporate shareholders. In early 2020, we held a media conference to showcase mounting evidence from members that the government was planning to privatize snow clearing on our highways. Not long after, members at the Vehicle and Equipment Management Agency, or VEMA, as well as the Infrastructure Department, began reporting the same pattern. The Civil Service Annual Report shows that infrastructure had 440 fewer employees last year than they had in 2016-17. VEMA's annual report shows the agency had 82 vacancies as of March 2020, and that's a number we believe to be much, much higher. So we filed a grievance against the Manitoba government's efforts to starve VEMA and the Infrastructure Department of its workers. As I have said over and over, one person cannot keep doing the work of 3 and expect the services not to suffer. This is a setup to fail. And through all this, not once have they consulted with a frontline member in any meaningful way. This government does what it chooses without talking or listening to the experts in the field, you who live and breathe the services you provide. But if they wouldn't, we could, and we did. Due to COVID restrictions, we couldn't hold meetings around the province like we did in 2018. So a virtual meeting with members would have to do. Together, we held a brainstorming session about how they could finally make themselves heard. In the end, we decided to commission an independent report that would verify and validate what members were telling us. The report would include a survey and interviews with members at VIMA and infrastructure, capturing their firsthand stories, concerns, and ideas. By mid-August of 2021, we were able to release this report along with a web story about the road to privatization and what this will truly cost Manitobans. We've promoted the report through all our social media channels and once again are making it easy for members and supporters to send a message to the Premier. We've found building this kind of online momentum, especially when it's impossible to organize an in-person rally or protest, is invaluable to us. I was recently informed infrastructure is actually hiring now, so congratulations to those that have stood strong. And here's another example. For those of you who may not know, the government handed over the keys of St. Ambrose Provincial Park to a private business this summer. What once cost anywhere from $11 to $23 for a night stay now costs $50 under private management. And we have reason to believe this is just the beginning. So we've teamed up with the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society to send a message to the Premier regarding parks privatization. Especially during COVID, more families have been enjoying what our parks have to offer. Manitobans are extremely proud of our public parks. And lo and behold, within mere days of setting up this initiative, again, thousands of messages flooded the Premier's inbox. Will the current government retreat from further privatization our infrastructure or parks like they did with the liquor sales? This remains to be seen, but I need to tell you, we must mount these challenges either way. We are in this for the long haul. When government policy threatens our province's public services and the good people who provide them, it's MGEU's job to push back strategically, relentlessly, as an entire membership. Sometimes we lose the battle while still getting our message across. We still make headway. What seems like a loss may build critical allies we may need somewhere down the road. We can never forget this. Take our efforts to reverse the government's decision on the Dauphin Correctional Centre. The DCC was one of the biggest employers in town, and Dauphinites had been anxiously preparing for years for its renovation and transformation into a correctional and healing center. We could hardly believe it when the Pallister government announced they would simply be closing the DCC altogether on extremely short notice and canceling the healing center project. As for us, we immediately engaged correctional officers from across the province and put a staff team in place to fight like hell to reverse that decision. The mayor and Reeve and local council jumped in with their support. You couldn't go to a single corner store in the parkland without seeing our Save the Jail petition. We were regulars on the local radio station and in the community newspaper. We held a march and rally one very, very cold day in February, and were thrilled that a few chiefs from surrounding First Nations came to show their support, along with our Nupchi leadership and other unions. We even had media from Winnipeg come out to attend. we were making progress and had indications the Minister of Justice was beginning to listen. Back in Winnipeg, dozens of COs and community members picketed the legislature before attending the legislative session to present a petition with nearly 6,000 signatures. Pallister never gave an inch. Maybe it's because he was clearly making a mistake and didn't want to admit it. I don't pretend to understand how that man's mind works. Whatever his reasons, others were clearly paying attention. One of the current contenders for the Tory leadership, Shelley Glover, said she'd consider reversing the decision if chosen as leader. I guess my question is, what, now that it's gutted? Really? Regardless, I believe our collective show of force in Dauphin is not something many of our members and many Manitobans or the current government will soon forget. They know we are prepared to stand up, get organized, and push back on autocratic decisions made in the name of nothing but austerity or shareholder interests, which is important because closures and cuts have led to critical workplace shortages all over our province. We've already begun drawing public attention to a dangerous lack of public health inspectors, conservation officers, motor carrier enforcement officers, and much, much more. I don't think it's news to anyone here that over the past 6 years, we've been dealing with a provincial government that has little respect for its own employees or the work that you do. A few weeks ago, and again this last Sunday on the front page of the Free Press, I repeated what I've been saying for over a year now. Unless the province beefs up recruitment and retention efforts, Manitobans can expect the level of services they receive to suffer even more than they already are. Thousands of small cuts through attrition add up to major slashes. You simply can't run government services without the people to do the work. Not long after our last convention, we launched People Behind the Public, a TV and online advertising campaign that showed MGEU members delivering a wide range of vital public services. Their message was clear. Manitobans' priorities were no longer being reflected in this government's actions. The majority of Manitobans deeply value having a strong and resilient public service system that they can rely on. And yet, not even a global emergency like the pandemic, arguably the most important time to invest in public services, has stopped the bleeding. Instead, the Pallister government used the pandemic as an opportunity to justify a plan for mass layoffs in the civil service. It's unbelievable. Yet, I must tell you, for me, it was one of my proudest moments as MGU president. When we found ourselves in the midst of the pandemic crisis, our union went into overdrive, striving to protect jobs and services and members as the world around us changed by the day. As pandemic-related issues emerged in our locals, whether it was working from home protocols or the need for childcare and adequate PPE, MGEU quickly adapted to virtually connecting with both members and employers, ensuring services and even meetings continued uninterrupted. The MGEU Resource Center never missed a beat. As always, they remained at the ready to take calls and emails from members to ensure members had ready access to their local executive and appropriate staff, and to triage any needs to visit MGEU offices. We quickly negotiated memorandums that minimized layoffs and the impact of workload reductions as locals like MPI and the colleges. We advocated for redeployment of workers instead of layoffs in the civil service and locals like liquor and lotteries. We filed grievance after grievance to ensure members' rights were protected during an unprecedented emergency. When our medical examiner investigators and lab technologists found themselves under crushing pandemic caseloads, we went public with their plight. We pushed until more support was hired to relieve some of the pressure on them. Each time a COVID case was identified in one of our locals, we immediately notified the members by emails. I know many of you have told me that email was your first heads up, and you appreciated such quick MGEU communication. And when Pallister began talking dire cuts to budgets and mass layoffs of so-called non-essential civil servants, we rallied like-minded supporters and fought back like hell. We launched a province-wide radio and online advertising campaign and remained a regular part of the news cycle for weeks, hammering our message. Mass layoffs and cuts are wrong for Manitoba families who count on public services, wrong for our members working on the front lines and behind the scenes to keep our province running, and wrong for our already struggling economy. This is just common sense. MGEU members and staff rallied the only way we could, flying our flags at honkathons outside the ledge while Pallister and his crew ate their lunch. And I have to tell you, my car horn still sounds like a sick duck from that. Meanwhile, supporters of our message, from economists to public policy experts, wrote op-eds in the newspapers calling out the Premier's approach and his motives. And for the first time, Pallister backed down. After consultation with members, we negotiated a no layoff clause in exchange for 5 unpaid days in 2020. This was not ideal. 5 unpaid days is not an insubstantial sacrifice for many of our members, but we fought off the threatened layoffs. This kind of collective action and choice is exactly what being part of a union is all about. United we stand, all for one and one for all. Elected leaders fought for an option that protected services and benefited the most. Looking back, I think spring 2020 was the beginning of the end for Brian Pallister. His devotion to austerity during an unprecedented crisis was a ridiculously tone-deaf misstep, even for him. Last month, I met with the interim premier. He called me within hours of being sworn in and told me a new era of conservative government in Manitoba had begun. We'll see. I have already had to call him back for clarification on his statement on the resurrecting of Bill 40 and private liquor sales. What I can say, though, is one big difference is that he actually answered the phone. But please rest assured that we are ready for what comes next. A new province-wide advertising campaign is already in the works. The current level of vacancy rates within our civil service is completely unsustainable, and making sure that message hits home for the Manitoba electorate, and there is an election in less than 2 years, you know. This is a huge priority for us. Editorials like this one from last week's Free Press are sure helpful in making that message clear. You and your work are a priority for Manitobans. Good jobs means good services. Because as I said, where we are at now is unsustainable and hugely, hugely unfair. Over the last 2 years, most of you have been doing more with less, working through the greatest public health crisis of our generation, giving it your all, under an expired contract, which brings me to the legislation. Perhaps the worst part of having this government as your employer. Don't like how the law protects the employees and the services they provide? Just change it. Don't want the over 100,000 public sector workers in your province to exercise their constitutional right to freely and fairly negotiate their wages with their employer? Well, just introduce a wage freeze mandate, otherwise known as Bill 28. But don't pass it. Tell them you're not really sure when you'll pass it or implement it, but just make sure any public sector employer knows their funding will be cut if they negotiate anything better than what you have dictated. So what do we do? What do we do when our employer is also the government wielding legislation that takes away your right to bargain? Well, we marshal our resources. We take them to court. The MGEU contacted lawyers to research on how we could best ensure our members' rights were upheld. And in 2019, we joined all the public sector unions impacted by Bill 28, 29 unions in all, under the leadership of the Manitoba Federation of Labor. Together, we hired those top-notch lawyers and formed the Partnership to Defend Public Services. And together, in a court of law, we argued that the bill infringed on our members' rights to bargain freely and collectively. And we won. The Manitoba Court of Queen's Bench ruled that the Pallister's government's actions to impede collective bargaining in the province were a violation of Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The judge actually called Bill 28 draconian. But the government, of course, determined to keep wasting thousands of tax dollars to stick it to their own hard-working employees, appealed the judge's decision. So in June of 2021, we were back in court arguing our case again. And just this last week, as you may have heard, the appeal court ruled in favor of the government this time. Were we disappointed? Oh, hell yeah. Are we done? No way. When all of us as unions came together under the Manitoba Federation of Labor, we knew court challenges would not be quick or come with any guarantee. But being able to go the distance, no matter how challenging, is a big part of why we are here as a labor movement. Together, we can marshal our resources to keep fighting for what's right. And if we decide it's the right thing to do, we can and we will take the trampling of our constitutional rights all the way to the Supreme Court. As soon as we, the Partnership to Defend Public Services, decides our next steps, you'll be the first to know, I promise. And it must be said that through all this big picture legal wrangling, MGEU negotiators and their bargaining committees have continued to actively and tirelessly pursue new deals. Since last convention, 50 bargaining units ratified new agreements. Wow. 5 of them were first contracts, and I'd like to welcome all of you new members out there. I know some of you are attending this convention as observers, and we welcome you. I hope you're already feeling empowered by your MGEU membership. At the civil service table, we also had one other option available to us. As the months passed and the courts deliberated and the government continued to dangle Bill 28 like this dark cloud over our heads, our Civil Service Bargaining Committee exercised its rights under collective agreement to file for arbitration. The minister refused, claiming that the union's request was premature. This government really does believe they are above the law. So off we went again to court to ensure our members' rights were respected. And as expected, we won. The Court of Queen's Bench agreed with us, ordering the minister to appoint an interest arbitration board. The judge called the minister's argument disingenuous at best. Still, the government refused to do the right thing, and are you noticing a trend here? I can't make this stuff up. Last summer, they appealed that judge's decision as well, delaying things even further. In December of 2020, the Court of Appeal heard arguments and in April dismissed the minister's appeal. Finally, last month, we presented our case in front of the interest arbitration panel, and when the decision comes out, all of you in the civil service will finally have had a fair hearing and a new deal. But what a waste. So much time, energy, and tax dollars. It boggles the mind. But I suppose that's what happens when politics trump people. It was the same when they introduced Bill 29. Well, this government was gutting our healthcare system, closing ERs, hospital beds, and ICUs. They decided it was time to hold a new round of union representation votes across the province. A little something to draw Manitobans and healthcare workers' attention away from what our government is doing to our healthcare system. This pits unions against unions. For months, we called out the plan as a distracting and a divisive thing to do to healthcare workers already going through so much stress and change. But we were left with no choice but to participate. We committed tremendous time, energy, and resources to the effort, even though we had far fewer members than our competition. We fanned out teams of members and staff across the province to meet with fellow healthcare workers. We listened hard to our members and made them the voice of our campaign. We believed our record stood for itself, and as always, we took the high road. In the end, we continued to represent locals in 2 health regions, and we welcomed new locals into the fold. But we did have to say goodbye to far too many members. I can hardly think about it without becoming angry. And sometimes anger isn't a bad thing, because I'll be damned if I'll let that loss, one that honestly was hard not to feel both personally and professionally for all of us in the MGEU, it's not going to hold us back. The stakes are just too high. While political maneuvers like these healthcare votes are taking place, thousands of members were telling us that their safety and health on the job needed urgent attention. In 2019, Manitoba Liquor Marts reported 462 thefts in a single week, one involving a horrific attack on a young liquor store worker that left her with a concussion. Remember I told you about the Golico component executive traveling around the province that summer? We've been talking to members about both privatization and these critical safety issues for months. So we were well equipped to act as a mediator between the employer, who knew they had a very serious problem, and our members, who had obvious fears and concerns, but also ideas and solutions. We took the issue to the Manitoba legislature as well. We brought in about 40 liquor workers with us to watch question period, and under their eyes, the opposition hammered the government on the brazen thefts and demanded better safety measures. Today, every single liquor mart in Winnipeg, Brandon, Portage la Prairie, and Selkirk have had permanent controlled entrances installed. And I know the tenders have now gone out for controlled entrances in Flin Flon and the Paw. We continue to lobby for the rest and will not give up until every single liquor store in Manitoba has them. In the 6 months before they were installed, Liquor and Lotteries says 5 of the harshest hit liquor marts reported 2,633 thefts during the year. That number dropped by more than 97% in 6 months after the controlled entrances were installed. We believe it's the public pressure we put on the employer and government that our members were able to return to safe workplace. Of course, when COVID hit, our members' workplace safety and health instantly became a top priority. From the moment the pandemic took hold, we began advocating that all employers must put safety first, suspend requirement for routine medical notes, maximize physical distancing, promote work-from-home arrangements wherever possible, develop paid leave provisions for those who must self-isolate. The union itself delivered over 15,000 reusable MGEU branded masks and thousands of bottles of hand sanitizer to members throughout the province. If the government wasn't going to protect our members, we would, while still fighting for them to be kept safe and equipped. As the pandemic wore on, a number of issues arose that required us to exert both public pressure and negotiate behind the scenes. For far too long, for instance, too many of our members lacked adequate PPE. They were given PPE that was expired and outdated, and we quickly fought hard to ensure proper PPE was provided across the province, not just in hospitals and care homes, but in jails and in home care too. But even before many of us knew what PPE meant, before we were familiar with the terms like lockdown and Zoom fatigue and drive-by birthday, you were telling us that your mental health deserves as much consideration as your physical health. At our last convention, several members came to the mic and spoke passionately about this, and I am so happy they did. It is the employer's responsibility to create both physically safe workplaces and psychologically safe workplaces. This is the law. But in reality, most of our locals have only begun to take baby steps in this area. The idea that an employer can and must promote good mental health and reduce risks that contribute to poor mental health in the workplace still seems a little pie in the sky for many of us. But it's not. We must start the conversation. We all have the right to a safe workplace, one that protects both body and mind. So following last convention, we pulled together a crackerjack team of membership who are experienced in and passionate about the issue, and together they've worked with staff to begin laying a foundation for real change. If you haven't yet, check out healthymindsattwork.ca, or better yet, join us for one of the Time to Connect webinars we've been hosting. They're great. They are both educational and interesting, and a safe, comfortable place to start the conversation about our mental health. Along with our partners at the Canadian Mental Health Association, plans are also in the works to hold our first Mental Health at Work conference this spring. We'll be sending you an email next month about how to apply, and I can't wait to hear from as many members as possible. We need everyone involved in this. It's a long-term project that has the potential to change the way we think about what makes a safe, supportive, productive workplace physically and mentally, which again is what unions are all about. Listen to your membership, hear their concerns, bring our collective force to bear in seeking solutions. This is true for that individual employee who deserves fair treatment or a second chance from their employer. It's true for that bargaining committee bringing their proposal package to the table. And it's true for the entire locals or components striving to improve far-reaching employer policies. This is why you may have seen me in the media a time or 2, 5, 10, maybe 30 times speaking about the toxic workplace culture at the Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Service. We're shining a spotlight on the very real problems our local 911 members continue to face: bullying, harassment, and we're helping our members voice their recommendations loudly and clearly as to how things must change. Or you may have noticed our recent campaign on behalf of those who support our most vulnerable Manitobans. These are our frontline members at locals like Main Street Projects, St. Amant, McDonald Youth Services, Parkland Crisis Center, to name a few. These are folks who are there day and night for vulnerable Manitobans on the street, in group homes, throughout our communities. For years, through changes in government, through the meth crisis, through the pandemic, have remained underpaid and undervalued. It is a field with constant turnover. So in partnership with UFCW, who also represents many of these workers, we launched a joint online advertising campaign drawing attention to these issues and asking Manitobans to demand better. It's a long-standing problem involving all levels of government and won't be solved overnight, but rest assured, We'll be running the campaign again, and the fight has just begun. For us, in fact, it will never be over. For us as union leaders, there will always be something else. One day it will be your issue, something that impacts you personally, and another day it will be someone else's. Sometimes there will be an obvious victory or loss. Sometime we'll move the bar a little closer towards what's fair and right. Sometimes we'll just hold our own. Like most democracies, our union is diverse and always evolving and ready to question itself. I congratulate each and every one of you who put your name forward for election as delegate to this convention. Believe me, I know it's not always easy to be an activist. Many of you have a target on your back for being involved. I know this. Standing together will continue to give us the strength that's needed to get us through these tough times. But it's also such a privilege to be an activist. It truly, truly is. I feel in my heart every time we meet. And we have so much to be proud of. Through the big P problems and everything else in between, we have found ways to come together and bring our collective strength to bear. As we look to the next few years, this should give each of us great hope. Solidarity will bring us strength. We are the MGEU. And looking towards a new normal, a new premier, and a new year, I say, bring it on.
Do you have audio now?
Ready? We're going to go back in
I will.
5, 4, 3, 2, go.
Okay, I'm sorry. Apparently you even have to adjust the mute on your microphone when you're here, so my apologies, folks. I want to make a few announcements before we break for lunch. In regards to the motion from this morning, the financial audited statements for 2019 and 2020 have been emailed out to all of the delegates, so check your personal email accounts. I also want to mention your delegate booklet contains all the documents needed prior to today's call to order. However, there were some documents that could not be included in your booklets, such as the auditor's report that was emailed to all delegates yesterday. If you've not had a chance to open your personal emails, please do so prior to this afternoon's proceedings to find all these documents. I also want to remind delegates of a long-standing MGU policy established by the Board of Directors that requires delegates attend all of the convention proceedings, or no reimbursement will be made for wage recovery according to our attendance policy, which is on the website. Attendance will be tracked through the duration of convention through Zoom, much like if we were at the convention hall, we'd all get our lanyards clicked. This time, as part of this, there'll be periodic attendance checks that delegates will be required to participate in at random parts of the day, as was done earlier this morning. Also, I want to remind you guys of the Standing Committee's contest. The details of the contest were emailed to you, or you can find it on our website or in the chat right now. To participate in the contest, there's an electronic form that you can submit by 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. The three winners will be randomly chosen tomorrow at 12, and the winners will get a chance to win one of 3 MG prize packages valued at $200 each. But you have to answer all 10 questions correctly. So, and again, look in the chat. The details are there for you. I also want to remind everyone that I should receive all nomination forms by noon, so in the next 27 minutes, as that will close all provincial officer nominations. If delegates are looking for current candidate information, please go to our website at mgu.ca, MGU Online 2021 and click the Candidates for Elections tab. What's listed there has been updated since the delegate booklets were printed, so please go online for the most up-to-date information. I would also add, if you go to the website to the convention highlights, you can watch a recording of last night's all candidate forums because some of the candidates don't have a bio or pic on the website. So that's another way for you to get to know the candidates that are running. Throughout the lunch break, we're going to be showing an overview of what our MGU standing committees have been up to since last convention. While some of their work, of course, has been hindered by health restrictions, these committed activists have continued to give above and beyond and move forward on issues important to all MGU members. The brief presentation will be on a loop, so you can feel free to stretch, get some lunch, go back to your screen at any time over the next hour and you'll be able to see it again. And with that, please enjoy your lunch and we will be reconvening at 12:30. See you then.